You are Locked On Clippers Postcast, part of Locked On Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Clippers Postcast. We come on usually right after the Clipper game. Of course, you can find us on Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every Clipper game is done. Sorry, we had a minor technical difficulty. If you're watching us, you can probably pick it up rather quickly. If not, then I challenge you to figure out what looks different tonight. You can also listen to us on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. I am Pete Fox, covering sports in LA for ESPN Radio and NBC Sports Radio, dating all the way back to 2007. A big one for the Clippers tonight. Second night of a back-to-back in New Orleans at Smoothie King against the Pelicans. Didn't come out the way they had hoped, but there was lots to feel good about. Lots of positives in this game. It wasn't a complete and utter embarrassment and disaster. They didn't blow a big lead. They fought hard throughout and ultimately had a shot to win this game in the fourth quarter. But the theme of the night, the headline should be, if this was a play, the billboard would read, "No resistance for Zion." That dude is a load. He is a beast. Lot to handle. The thing about Zion, he's like a double-edged sword, though. Sometimes he's just so good and so tough to deal with. If you're a Pelicans fan, you probably expect that from him almost every night. And there are nights when he just doesn't show up. And then it's a whole different team. And tonight was not that night. He was just so much to deal with. Zubats did not know how to handle him. I started thinking, there's a phrase in football. At the end of the season, a team is out of the playoffs, and a big, beefy running back is cramming the ball down their throat at the end of the game. And you'll see linebackers and defensive backs not really, make a full 100% effort on a tackle. And the announcers and the players will call that making a business decision, because there's no need to. We're not in the playoffs. I'm not going to get run over by that 265-pound man, potentially hurting myself, keeping me out of, the opportunity to make more money next year, keeping me off the field to start next season, whatever. It could end my career. So they'll, do a bit of an Olay and get out of the way. It seemed like at times tonight, that's what Zubats was doing with Zion Williamson, just not defending him, just backing up, doing the Olay and giving Zion an easy path to the basket. The only guy that was really doing a good job on Zion was PJ Tucker. He was being very physical with him. PJ Tucker, another good night in 24 minutes, not a big stat line, but lots of energy and playing defense. He drew a charge from Zion at one point. Other than that, very little resistance for the Clippers against Zion Williamson. 112-104, the final. Bones Highland started again, 24 minutes, just 5 points. It did hit 1-3, but really struggling early in the first half. Clippers did a nice job in the first quarter. Kawhi got off to a good start, 7 points early, but the defense seemed to me to be a little soft. They were just slow. That being said, the same could be held true for the Pelicans. They weren't playing very aggressively either. Consequently, it was a very close first quarter. Clippers led it 22-20 after one. Clippers only had 2 turnovers in the first quarter, and they held the Pelicans to 35% shooting. So off to a good start, but I was wondering if that pace was slow intentionally. Did the Clippers try to muck this game up and turn it into a rock fight intentionally, thinking the second night of a back-to-back, they're not going to have a ton of energy? If that's the case, then I give them kudos and say, good job, well done. It didn't end up working out, but it kept them in the game. Second quarter rolled around, energy picked up. The perimeter defense was better. But with the perimeter defense being better, the paint opened up. Just a little too easy for guys to get layups under the bucket. Now, Brian Seaman and Coach Fratello commented multiple times that they thought the Clippers were doing a very good job in the paint defending, slowing down the Pelicans. I don't know what game they were watching. At times, sure. Zubats made a couple of defensive efforts. PJ Tucker, as I said, there was a few, but all in all, if you grade them on their defense in the paint under the basket, C minus, D plus at best. They did not do a good job of clogging up the paint. And I get it. It's hard. Zion Williamson is a load. He played 35 minutes, 14 of 21, 6 of 10 from the line, 34 points on the night, 7 boards, 4 assists, 3 steals. He did a little bit of everything. It's probably the best I've ever seen him play. At times I was surprised. Was that Zion doing that? Like penetrating from the perimeter. And there was one play right at the end of the third quarter. Coffee makes a buzzer beater from the corner to make it 71 apiece. And then just before the end of the half, or the end of the quarter rather, Zion gets the ball and goes end to end. You could see him take the inbound and just kind of say, get out of my way. And the Clippers, of course, did. They just parted the Red Seas for him and said, go right to the hoop. And he made a bucket as time expired. So actually, Norm Powell made that basket to tie it at 71. My bad. But Coffee did make that 3 right at the end of the third quarter, which was clutch for them. They needed it. It was a 2-point ball game at that point, even after the Zion basket. So the Coffee 3 tied it at 80. Then Zion with the end-to-end layup made it 82-80 Pelicans. And from there, they started to pull away because the first minute and a half of the fourth quarter was all Pelicans. The Clippers just let their hands off the wheel at that point. It happened fast. It's like a heavyweight fight that, they're counterpunching and, rope-a-doping. And all of a sudden one guy just lands a haymaker on the jaw. That's what it felt like. Because all of a sudden it was a 2-point ball game at the end of the third. And within about a minute and a half, the Pelicans went on a 10-2 run. And I'll tell you what was wrong with that right after this. All right, tonight's show brought to you by one of our favorite partners, eBay Motors. We've teamed up with them and our Locked On Fantasy Basketball host, Josh Lloyd, to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long, whether you're prepping for a daily draft, scouting the waiver wire. Every week, we're going to give you some players that will help you do better with your fantasy, that will fit right into your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us this week. eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Pick of the Week. I picked out 2 because he threw Norm Powell in there, which is always a good pick. I would agree with that. And he also likes Keontae George taking charge in Utah. The only thing slowing him down would be an injury. So there's a couple of options for you and your fantasy basketball team. If you are in need of a part for your car that is going to upgrade it, make it better, potentially fix a problem that is nagging, well, eBay Motors has got you covered. They have the parts that fit your car, and they have a guaranteed fit to keep your ride or die alive, and they do it on a budget. I personally purchased many parts on eBay Motors. They always fit right away, and I've always also had very good luck finding unique, harder parts. Like I had an older BMW once, and I had a tough time finding brake lights or tail lights or something, and I found it there a couple of different times. And one time I had the wrong part, and I had to send it back, and they sent me the right part. So that's the best part about it. They'll refund you or give you the right part if you got the wrong part. And more than anything, they really, really do give you great deals, saving you a lot of money with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits are always a great deal. They're probably a quarter to a third cheaper than if you bought them at an auto parts store, and they will, of course, always fit. They have LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with their guaranteed fit, as I said, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or you get your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay's guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right. Clippers fall 112-104 in a hard-fought game at Smoothie King in New Orleans. The Crescent City, the Pelicans win the season series 3-1, which this was a big one. They needed it. It would have been nice to split that season series. It would have been a tiebreaker for them. But I feel like the Clippers in this one weren't as bad as maybe the score would indicate at times. Second night of a back-to-back, 5 games in 7 days. Yes, the excuse train is rolling through town right now. I'm jumping on board of the excuse train, but I feel like if they had to meet the Pelicans in a postseason series, Clippers would have no problems. I don't think they would dominate them 4-0. The Pelicans are very, very good, especially in the paint, as I mentioned. But if you can figure out a way to slow down Zion Williamson, and I think in a 7-game series they would, there are other guys on this team that are good, but none of them are Zion Williamson. Brandon Ingram is good. 13 points tonight in 35 minutes, a couple of threes. CJ McCollum, obviously a stud. We know him, 11 points. But he had a big first half, not much from him in the second half. Larry Nance Jr., also a very good player, 12 points in 28 minutes, 4 of 6. Alvarado was hot tonight. He was 3 of 5 from beyond the arc for 9 points. And Murphy played 32 minutes, 5 of 10, 4 threes for 14 points. They shot 13 of 35 from beyond the arc for 37%. And Clippers were only 1 bucket fewer in that department, 12 of 33, 36%. So, and James Harden didn't play again. So I feel like if you match this up in a 7-game series, Zion can get his, that's fine. But the fact of the matter is that these guys aren't going to keep that up for a 7-game series. That's just too much to ask from them. So I feel like the Clippers lost this game, but they come away from it feeling positive, right? They have to figure out a way to get Zubac to be more physical. Is he soft? Have I misread this all along? Is Ivica Zubac soft? I didn't think he was. He hasn't been. They needed more from him all around tonight. He was probably my letdown of the night. Disappointment, if you will. Wasn't terrible. 33 minutes, 4 of 7, 9 points. But I felt like in the first half, when things were getting tough, they needed more from him offensively, and they didn't get it. And then in the second half, they needed more from him defensively, and they didn't get it. They got a little bit more offense from him in the second half because I think he had 0 or 2 in the first half. So 11 boards, nothing to shake a stick at there, but definitely need more from Zubac. At that point in time, late in the game, when Zion was dominating them, if I'm Ty Lue, I'm pulling Zoo and I'm going to give Daniel Tice a try, right? Daniel Tice is definitely a more physical guy, and you don't necessarily need the points because Paul George was filling it up once again. A big night for Paul George. Kawhi Leonard, also a big night. 26 for PG, and Kawhi had 23. 3 threes from Paul George, just 1 from Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi did miss some clutch shots down the stretch that would have been very, very helpful. But if it's not working for Zubac against whomever, especially a guy like Zion, get another guy in there. You got 3 of them. Plumlee's not afraid to go in there and throw his weight around. He'll go in there and do whatever the heck you need from him. So I didn't necessarily appreciate that. Late in the game, they pulled him and went small. They brought in Coffee. I don't know. I don't love that. The small play works when you have a big man on the other team that is not running you over like a Mack truck, right? Because that just made it even easier for Zion to score. There was just 0 resistance for him. It really did feel like they were making business decisions. So I feel like in a 7-game series, they would definitely have a better game plan. PJ Tucker probably would get more minutes because he's definitely more physical. They might just exclusively put him on Zion. He knew how to help. One of the other things that they were saying, speaking of help, was Brian Shaw commented after the break that they felt like at times the Clippers were over-helping. So they reminded them to not overhelp because that freed guys up. But really, honestly, there were what was the number? 24 of 30 in the paint, 24 attempts, 24 points out of 30 attempts, or 24 buckets out of 30 attempts. Yes, that's what it was. 24 baskets out of 30 attempts. So they missed 6 baskets in the paint. Now that wasn't the end of the game. That was about midway through the fourth, but that's just too easy, right? You got to have more defense. You got to have more resistance. The active hands that they had working last night, didn't see a lot of that tonight. Occasionally, they just needed more defense. There was one series where the Pelicans got 2 offensive rebounds. So 3 looks at it, and the Clippers got the rebound. They did not ultimately score. Clippers went down, and I thought That was about the 9-minute mark of the fourth. 3 cracks at the basket and came up empty. And then the Clippers had an opportunity right there. Had they scored, made a 3, got a stop and another bucket, they would have gotten right back into it because they were hanging around in the fourth quarter. It was never a runaway. For the most part, they were down about 5 throughout the entire fourth quarter until the final minutes. When the final 2 minutes, it was really pretty much over. It was a 9-point advantage, then a 7, then 9-7. I think they again got it down to 5, but ultimately a 8-point win, 112-104. So they needed to do just a little bit more. I don't think this game was way out of reach, right? They just needed a few more stops in the fourth quarter. And in a playoff series, they'll get those stops. They'll have more energy. The back-to-back issue won't really be there, although sometimes they do play on back-to-back nights in a playoff series, I think. No, probably not. That's not right. It's been a while. The playoffs were last year, for crying out loud. I don't think they play on back-to-back nights in the playoffs, so that would not be an issue for them. So this game, lots of things to feel positive about. Hopefully Bones Highland got some experience in this game, because at times he seemed a little bit overwhelmed. Like this game was just a little too big for him. Brian Seaman brought that point up a few times, and I tend to agree that Bones Highland's been very good. He's improved dramatically from night to night to night. Tonight he kind of took a step back, but that's what happens, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. For Bones, it's been like 4 steps forward, now 1 step back. 24 minutes for him. He was 2 of 9, 1-3, finished with just 5 points. At one point, he had a couple of turnovers, right? And they were criticizing him for that, as was I, writing down the notes. And then on the heels of that, he had a steal and a block shot. So you got to like that energy, right? He's backing up some bad play with good play. And I feel like that's one of the things that he brings to the table. Lots of energy, lots of nose to the grindstone, I guess you could say. He doesn't give up. He doesn't hang his head. He gets out there and battles. So we like that from Bones Highland. Clippers lose this one 112-104. Second night of a back-to-back. They are now off until Sunday. We'll come back and we'll get into the bucket list, because there was plenty to fill up that list. They had a tough time coming up with 5, as there was a ton of big shots in this one. We'll talk about that right after the break. All right, our friends at Stitch Fix, one of our sponsors of the show tonight. Stitch Fix is great because they have stylists that will help you pick out your wardrobe, and you don't have to do a whole lot of anything. You just kind of tell them what you like. This is what I like. I like quarter zips like I'm wearing right now, or I like button downs, or I like golf shirts, or I like t-shirts and jeans, and that's my look, t-shirts and jeans. Basically, you tell them what you like, and that professional stylist will help you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. And if you don't love something, you just send it back. Shipping and returns are always free. The other great thing about it is it gives you a confidence boost. I know when I get brand new clothes from wherever, online, Costco, wherever I find something that I have to have, the first few times I put it on, it makes you feel good because you look good. And with Stitch Fix, you can be confident that you'll feel and look good all of the time. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. All right, Clippers lose it in New Orleans, the Crescent City, 112-104. I don't think there was any partying on Bourbon Street, as they were on a back-to-back. They had a fairly long flight from Chicago. I don't know that it's all that long, like a couple hours maybe at worst. So they're flying private, so they don't have to deal with what we have to deal with. So I don't necessarily, it wasn't like they were flying from Portland to New Orleans. Then I'd have a different issue about them being a little run down, but they didn't seem to be tired at all tonight. They had plenty of energy. The first quarter, as I said, was a little bit slow, but the pace picked up in the second. And I tend to believe that maybe that was intentional. They were trying to slow it down. Defense was a little bit soft. The energy picked up. But with that perimeter defense picking up, the closing out at times left the paint open. So that was an issue there that I think that they need to work on and be a little bit more mindful of. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, both big first halves. PG had 17, Kawhi had 11. And as I said, they held the Pelicans down. It was a 6-point ball game at the break. Pelicans were up 50-44, and the Clippers only had 5 turnovers. So something that they've been dealing with as an issue for them, again, tonight wasn't terrible, right? It was better last night for sure, but the turnover situation tonight was 12. So you'd like to see fewer. Pelicans only had 8. The offensive rebound was also better. It wasn't, the Clippers were not giving up a ton of offensive rebounds to the Pelicans. They had 9 on the night. So you have to feel good about that. Transition defense was not great. That is another issue that I think that will be on the whiteboard and circled as they get ready for their next performance on Sunday. I believe that is a 5:00 start. Again, the Pelicans win the season series 3-1. Tonight, of course, 112-104. Back on February 7th, the Pelicans won a similar game, 117-106 in LA. The one lone victory for the Clippers was in New Orleans, 111-95. And the Pelicans win game 1 in LA, 116-106. So all their games pretty close. There were no blowouts on either side. So I feel like it's quite probable that these two could meet up in the playoffs, and I would feel very good about a postseason matchup between these two. All right, let's get to the bucket list here real quick. In at number 5 of the top buckets of the night would be Amir Coffey. It was a steal and then an end-to-end layup. So playing some defense and then penetrating all the way to the basket about the, what does that say? 1 minute mark of the first? That can't be right. Anyway, it made it a tie ball game of 20-20. Yeah, it was the 1 minute mark of the first quarter. Such a low scoring first quarter. We thought it was going to be similar to that Minnesota Timberwolves game that the Clippers gutted out, which, by the way, was the lowest scoring game for a team to win, right? That they scored 87 or 89 in that game, I believe. No team has won scoring fewer points all season long than the Clippers did in that one. So we thought maybe we'd get some of that tonight, but it didn't turn out to be the case. For number 4, Paul George hit a mid-range fadeaway, which he did pretty regularly tonight. He was fairly locked in. It came at the 54-second mark of the second. It made it a 4-point ball game. Clippers down 48-44. For number 3 tonight on the bucket list, PJ Tucker, a corner 3 at the 10:51 mark of the third. Clippers still down 52-47. It was significant because it was his 702nd, that's right, corner 3, which is very high on the list. He is the master, reportedly, of corner 3s. I think I saw him miss a few too many after he made that first one, unfortunately. But 2 of 3 on the night. Not terrible. For number 2, Terrence Mann at the 5:11 mark of the third made a 3 from the wing. It made it a 2-point ball game, 65-63 Pelicans. It forced a New Orleans timeout. And for number 1, Paul George, leading scorer on the night, had back-to-back 3s right around the 8-minute mark of the fourth quarter. It made it 98-94. So as I said, the Clippers were just hanging around, 4 or 5 points. They just couldn't stack any stops. But Paul George made some big buckets, hand in his face, deep 3s. He had one where he did a slide step with a defender in his face and buried it, that's just a tough shot. So all in all, for Paul George, a very good night. 41 minutes, 10 of 21, 3 of 9 from beyond the arc. He was perfect at the line, 26 points. He had 1 block shot, 1 steal, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds. For tonight's superlatives, the best job on Zion. I have 2 results for best job on Zion. Number 1 would be the bench, just getting some rest. That was the best for the Clippers. When Zion was not playing, when he was playing, PJ Tucker did a very good job bodying him up, slowing him down, taking a charge at one point. He just was not afraid of getting in there and throwing his weight around and being physical. Whereas Zubac at times appeared to be reluctant. I don't want to call him afraid because I don't know. As I said, is Zubac soft? He's been accused of that when he was early in his career when he was a Laker, a lot of people called him soft all the time. I think he's kind of shed that moniker, right? I feel like he's not the most physical guy in the league, but he's not soft, I don't think. Tonight he looked soft, so he's going to have to ratchet that up against these big men, these beefy, beastly kind of guys like Zion Williamson. The guy you were screaming at your TV for them to pass it to, Paul George, because he was hitting big buckets late in the game. Kawhi was missing them, so I know I was. Either Paul George or Norm Powell, either one of those guys, fine, get it to them. But Norm missed one as well, so they just weren't filling it up, going on a run the way they needed to late in the game. And the sixth man of the night was, in fact, Norm Powell, coming off the bench for 26 minutes, 4 of 9, 2 threes, perfect from the line, 15 points. So another solid performance from Norm Powell off the bench. But unfortunately, it was in a loss, 112-104, the final there. So Clippers, another back-to-back in the books. So I guess they have to feel really good about that. 5 games in 7 nights. So 1, 2. So that would be, 3 games in 5 nights moving forward. The next one, Sunday, they will take on the Atlanta Hawks back in LA. So there's just a 1-game homestand. That game will start at 6:30 p.m. on NBA TV. So that's going to be another high-paced running and gunning up and down for the Clippers. It's not going to be a gutted out type of thing. So they're on the plane right now, heading back to LA. Tomorrow will be a day of rest probably, and then Sunday night against the Atlanta Hawks at Crypto.com, where they will look to try to get back on track. Just not going great for them. That win against the Bulls was very nice a couple of nights ago. This one would have been even better to get some momentum heading home, but it wasn't to be. So they've now dropped 3 of their last 4. But again, tonight, all in all, I think I would put a grade of B to B- on this one. I don't know that you can grade a loss much higher than that, but Kawhi Leonard and Paul George played very well. Hopefully James Harden gets healthy and gets back really soon. Bones Highland could have used more from him. Definitely needed more from Zubats. Terrence Mann had a nice night. Wasn't great, but it's exactly what you expect and what you get from him for the most part on a regular basis. I just didn't like the way they lost control of the wheel early in the fourth quarter, right? The game was a 2-point ball game heading into the fourth quarter. And then at the 2 minutes in, like at the 10:30 mark of the fourth, they were down double digits or 9, I believe, because they gave up a 10-2 run. So they were down by 11 a couple of different times. And you'd like to see a little bit more fight getting into the fourth quarter, not have to scratch and claw and fight your way back into the game. So that would be something that I think they need to focus on and improve on, just a little bit more focus. But it's tough smelling the barn because they know they're going home on the second night of a back-to-back. It all makes sense to me. I'm not too terribly upset with them. As I said, I'll give them a B. That's my grade on tonight's loss, a B. Nobody can complain and criticize a B too terribly much. Again, they lose to the Pelicans 112-104. And again, back at it on Sunday against the Hawks in LA at Crypto.com. Thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen to us on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. And I promise you I'll have the graphics all rearranged and locked in the right shape and size and the right order the next time we talk on Sunday evening after the Clippers take on the Hawks. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy the weekend. Talk to you Sunday night.